The White House is pumping out spin so dangerously diluted on Biden's latest brain freeze that it would make Kim Jong-un blush. For the third time in a week, Joe Biden froze in public. The president seen gazing motionless at the crowd during a glitzy Hollywood campaign fundraiser in Los Angeles Saturday night, forcing his former boss, Barack Obama, to gingerly lead the old man off the stage like it was bedtime. But the White House and Democrats don't want you to believe your own eyes. They're aggressively pushing back on the notion that our dear leader would ever mentally slip in public by calling it cheap fakes.
This is something coming from your part of the world, calling them cheap fakes and misinformation. We're seeing these deep fakes, these manipulated videos, and it is, again, done in bad faith. Let's not forget, President Obama, President Biden have a relationship. They are friends. They're like family to each other. And I think that's what you saw. Okay, let's talk about Juneteenth. Just because you're standing up listening to music and not dancing, that is not a health issue. That is just not a health issue.
Biden's mounting cognitive lapses are causing the media to lower their expectations for his debate against Trump next week.
You know, the first presidential debate is set for June 27th. It already feels like the bar that is set for Biden to clear is so much substantially higher than the one Trump has to clear, which is literally, is he alive? Is he standing? Are the words coming out of his mouth?
You know, Martha, it's so unfair to have these high expectations of Joe Biden. I mean, when, according to MSNBC, he normally, Donald Trump is literally, it's questionable whether he's alive, whether he's standing, whether he can get a sentence out. Do you believe your lying eyes or not?
I mean, that video is very telling. And the thing is, it's interesting because Britt Hume said that he thought that probably the Biden folks were annoyed because former President Obama reached over and put his hand on top of his hand and then, the hand on the back, that maybe he could have made it look a little bit better. But what happens is when he turns and walks, he's still not kind of shaking out of it. You know what I mean? It's not like you get like a little bit lost in thought and he's absorbing the crowd, but then you go, oh, okay, and you just turn around and walk away in a like lit up, cognizant way. There's a big event. This continues to be a problem. I kind of feel bad at this point for Karine Jean-Pierre that she has to make up these things about deep fakes and manipulated video. Now, I understand in the parachute video there was something going on the other side that he turned to look at. But if this was one video, Judge, it would be one thing. It's just the constant repetition. And we see it in the polls that people don't feel confident. They're worried about his age. And it's pretty clear. But I would love to know what the vibe is like between the Obama camp and the Biden camp today, because that didn't look good.
Yeah. And, Jesse, as Martha says, we've seen it all before. I mean, last week, where was he? He was at the G7 and the Prime Minister of Italy had to literally drag him away from his watching somebody jumping out of the sky or whatever it was.
He's been dragged away by the Easter Bunny, Judge. He's been dragged away by Jill, Kamala, Barack, the Italian bird. Now everybody is just dragging the man off the stage. If he doesn't know where he's going, how can he tell the country where to go? He keeps on saying, watch me, and it's getting harder to watch. He has special shoes. He has a machine that he needs to breathe at night. He has a note card that says, I am Joe Biden. And now we're getting this thing that this is a deep fake. Republicans don't need deep fakes. We don't need dossiers. We don't need edited videos. We don't need the CIA. We just need to point a camera at Joe Biden. That's it. Point a camera at the prices. Point a camera at the border. They keep on saying this election's about democracy. It's about reality. This is about reality versus democracy. And their campaign now on the left is, I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you. The Trump crime family is going to lock up their political opponents has broken the border, is defunding the police, and is barely alive, can barely talk. That kind of projection, that only works on low information voters. That only fires up the hyper-partisans on the left. I saw a poll the other day, the expectations for Joe Biden, half the country, Judge, thinks the man's going to wander the wrong way off the debate stage. That's how low. I shouldn't even say that because it's already too low. But you now have a poll out in Iowa. Donald Trump is beating Joe Biden by 18 points.
Iowa.
What does that mean for Michigan, Wisconsin? This thing looks bad, and now they're talking about swapping Hillary in if he bombs in this debate.
Well, you know what, Harold, nobody wants to see the president fail, but the whole idea that, they're out there saying this election is not about age, Joe and the other guy are about the same age. Even for the debate, as Jesse's saying, they're going to be seated. We don't even get to see them walk in. They'll be seated so that, there's one less obstacle to worry about for Biden.
Happy belated Father's Day to everybody watching, to
Thank
Jesse,
you.
and good to be back around the table.
Really good.
I'd say a couple of things. On the debate, this will be the most watched, obviously, political exercise, notwithstanding the great numbers we all have around the table and everyone's respective shows, in the history of television. This will have Super Bowl-like numbers. And even if it doesn't reach that crescendo, who they're going to reach are those percentage of voters that we talk about, the small group of voters, 300,000 or so, maybe a little less, a little more in 6 states, who ultimately have decided the last 3 or 4 election cycles. And as a result of that, I think both sides are trying their hardest to disqualify the other candidate. And it's only going to get worse. The language, the rhetoric, the intensity of the rhetoric, and sometimes the ridiculousness of the rhetoric will only, on both sides, will ramp up, largely because that's the way you get after those voters, and that's the way you show that 300,000 that this guy should not be the next president of the United States again. 3, the debate. I can't wait for the tough, direct questions designed to elicit real answers. Where do you stand on the border? Why haven't you done more on the border? Why did you call your party members and ask them to vote against a negotiated settlement around the border? Should we do more in Israel? Should we do more for Israel or less for Israel? Do you believe, as we look at Supreme Court nominees over the next 3 or 4 years, will you have a litmus test? And what will you do on taxes? Both of these candidates will have an opportunity to share exactly where they stand. And not only will those 300,000, 400,000, or 250,000 independent voters who likely will decide this election in 6 states be listening, but the tens, if not hundreds of millions of us, and if that mattered, maybe a billion around the world, or hundreds of millions around the world, who want to know where the leader of the free world, the next leader of the free world, may stand on issues that impact them and impact us as a nation. So I'm looking forward to June 27th as much as anybody.
Greg, they talk about, Karine Jean-Pierre talks about cheap fakes, deep fakes, manipulating the videos to make Joe look bad. What's your reaction to that?
Well, we can see it with our own eyes and hear it with our own ears. And they mock people for suspecting there might be some fraud in an election, which is a process that one can't see, that is not transparent. And they laugh at anybody who suspects that there might be something off somewhere. Here we can see it with our own eyes and hear it with our own ears, and they're telling us, no, it's not true. That's manipulated. I would call them Biden deniers. They are Biden deniers. And I do agree that this debate is incredibly important, Harold, and it's good to see you, and happy Father's Day.
Thank you, sir.
But if you feel that it is that important and vital, why would you put up a feeble, deteriorating man? I mean, what they're trying to do right now, the current defense, is to make Joe a sympathetic character. You're picking on him if you talk about his age or his infirmary or whatever you want to call it. The true cruelty isn't the criticism of Joe being out there. The true cruelty is putting Joe out there. So if everybody's saying, oh, it's wrong, you're the guys behind it. You're the guys behind it. It's like that people criticizing Trump for criticizing Milwaukee's crime and poverty problem, as if that's worse than the thing he's criticizing. No, it's not. Joe is a symbol of national disrepair. If you look at America right now, it's like that charming house that was on the corner, well-manicured hedges, white picket fence, fresh paint, but it has fallen into disrepair because the person living in there became isolated, shut in, mentally decimated, and he let the house fall to ruins. That's what America feels like. I think what people feel is profound neglect because this White House is not connected to the American people. They swim in luxury beliefs. People are getting murdered by illegal aliens, but that takes a back seat to trans rights and climate change. The left has ignored Biden's failings, and they expect us to ignore them too, believing that he has 4.5 more years. He doesn't have 4.5 more months. I'm sorry. Jimmy Carter was probably watching and going, what's that guy doing up there? It's not good. It's not good. I think if you believe that Trump is a danger to society, you are morally obligated to put a candidate up there that can win and a candidate that can function. They're not doing that, which again leads me to believe, what are they doing? So that's it.
Well said. Coming up, Joe Biden's reckless open border takes another innocent American life. Police charging an illegal immigrant with the murder of a mother of 5.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.